A very good evening and thanks for clicking on to the late edition of Vogan's European Outlook for Saturday the 4th of March. Quick look at the current temperatures as of recording at 10 past 6 in the evening, and relatively, can you say it's cold? Can you say it's mild? I don't know. Temperatures generally almost uniform across the board. 6 at Altnahara, we've got a 6 down near the south coast, a few degrees either side of that. Up and down the country, as you can see here. Current precipitation, this is the latest radar of weather online, and you can see here a peppering of showers across the north and the eastern half of the UK. We still have, generally the coldest air north of the British Isles, but that will change over the next 24 hours or so. We're looking actually real quick at the European temperatures at this moment in time. You can see here that we have got relatively cool across the north and eastern half of the continent. We've got generally mild across the southwest, and yeah, we are going to see the cold coming down in the next 24 hours or so in the via two areas of low pressure. So this is the current setup of the GFS. So it's all eyes on the snow situation this upcoming week. We will have two scenarios in terms of distribution and deliverance of that snowfall. We are going to see initially northerly winds bringing in the snow showers across the north as well as the east of the British Isles, and then our eyes get turned to the Atlantic during the middle portion of the week here, and that may produce some snow in more southern portions of the UK. So this is the latest GFS here. You can see that area of high pressure deflating, drifting slightly to the west. There's feature number 1 coming down. This is actually on Sunday as opposed to Saturday. So let's get back to the right chart here. So yeah, area of high pressure still at 1032 millibars. I think the pressure now here at the house has finally dropped below 1030 millibars. That's been the case pretty much all week, which is amazing. Also recorded the first rain in a week here at the house as well, thanks to those showers coming in. So we're kind of slightly deflating the area of high pressure, and what we're going to see is that high drifting a little bit further to the west. As you can see here, there's feature number 1 coming down. That is going to kind of introduce something a little colder across particularly the northern half of the British Isles, but it will have rain associated. We've seen it today, but behind that feature, there is a little bit of colder air coming into the fray. Then, as you can see here, these little embedded areas, these disturbances within that northerly flow coming down. What that's going to do is it's essentially going to almost kind of pull some of that Arctic air down, but also it's going to enhance precipitation. So here's that main feature that I've been alluding to in the last couple of days, coming down past just to the west of Shetland, coming south to the east of the UK. So we're in the cold western flank of that area of low pressure, and that is going to introduce that much colder air. And I'll show you the 850 temperatures in just a second. But then, of course, you can see here the boundary separating relatively mild air with cold air. Here you can see that kind of mismatch of precipitation, rain on that leading edge, mild air, of course, and then colder air tucking in on the backside. We see precipitation changing over the snow as the freeze level drops through the course of Monday. So you can see that feature becomes a little bit deeper as it drifts south. We see the snow showers piling in across the north and the eastern half of the continent here, or the country, should I say. This is into the early portion of Tuesday, of course, with the hours of darkness. Freeze level even drops further. Therefore, even down to sea level, we could be seeing an accumulation of snow across particularly northern portions of the British Isles. Look at that area of low pressure. Look at how it deepens on that region there between, I can't remember the stretch of water here, but just basically on the south side of Sweden, northern Denmark here. That area of low pressure becomes a very deep feature, tightens up. We could see blizzard conditions across southern portions of Norway, Sweden, possibly even into the north of Denmark also. So that is a notable feature moving into the continent, as you can see here. This is, of course, 12 o'clock on Tuesday. We're still in that run of northerly winds here. Very cold winds at that. And then as we progress towards the middle portion of the week, we keep our eyes in this area of low pressure. So we've got that block now set up in place over the UK. Very cold air over the British Isles, and that acts like a blocker, and essentially it kind of almost forces the track of these lows further south. And this is what happens with sudden stratospheric warmings. If you get the right block in the right place, it forces the storm track further and further south, and that is what we're seeing down at the surface with this response 2 weeks after the event takes place, way up at 10 millibars here. So you can see what happens. We've got more embedded features within that northerly flow, enhancing potentially the snow showers across the north. Looks as if the latest run of the GFS has that area of low pressure that we were watching a couple of days ago, tracking initially across the south of Ireland, through mid Wales, through the Midlands of England. It's now further south, and this is the problem that we have even now over the next day or so. Until we get closer to the time frame, we do not know exactly where this area of low pressure will track. It may still be further north, it may be like here further south. That still remains open to question. The ECMWF, which we'll look at in just a second, also is further south with the track now. So the models are seeing further south push of that Arctic air, which is quite interesting. So as we push towards the middle portion of the week, we've got enhancement of snow across the north, probably clear blue skies elsewhere across the majority of the UK, away from that north, possibly down the eastern side of England as well, and over Ireland and Northern Ireland as well. Crisp day by day, very cold during the overnight period here. So you notice here these areas of low pressure tracking to the south. This is now by early Thursday morning. We've got more areas of low pressure embedded within that northerly flow. And then as we push right the way towards the very end of the week, the latest run of the GFS has an area of low pressure, pretty deep at that. Squeezing isobars, lots of precipitation, could be a very messy picture if this was to materialize. Could see some very significant wind, rain, thunder embedded within that. Notice the centre here in the west coast of Ireland, but we've got the lion's share of moisture rattling the way across the UK. And of course, this could be a significant snowmaker across particularly the Midlands, Eastern England, Northern England, and much of Scotland. With that firmly entrenched cold air in place, that feature moves through, then we're seeing more systems riding in. But of course, where these areas of low pressure track is going to be critical. Do we stay in the cold air for the majority of the UK and these areas of low pressure are further south, possibly? Or they could be tracking further north like we're seeing at the moment here. So this is the GFS scenario. Let's have a look at the ECMWF. And you can see here, similar idea. We've got, of course, these features coming down with the northerly flow. We introduce the cold air. That area of high pressure gets deflected to the west. And, of course, we see the enhancement of snow showers with these features coming down. Keeping our eyes out in the Atlantic as we push towards the middle portion of the week. You can see here, like the GFS, it has these areas of low pressure running further south than the previous run. So it's indicating that the air mass itself is stronger, it's colder, and is forcing the storm track further south. This is by the time we get to the second half of the upcoming work week. And unlike the GFS, it's indicating that the latest run of the ECMWF has this area of low pressure. Rather than moving up towards Scotland, it's actually tracking further south. So the focus of heaviest snowfall would be further south with that area of low pressure, and it looks as if the northern half of the British Isles remains in the cold air for a lot longer. This is right the way through next weekend. You notice here the tracks are further south. We've got an area of cold high pressure across the north, so we maintain this cold theme here. Like I've said before, my hunch is that even if we do get an introduction of milder air from the Atlantic, I think the cold air will fight back. based on all this taking place. Mandragoran oscillation, response to the sudden stratospheric warming, etc. We may get these surges of mild trying to person. There's going to be this battle that's going to fight between the cold and the mild as we progress towards the end of next week. So looking at the 850 temperatures as promised here, this is off the GFS. So we're relatively cold now across the north and down the east coast, mild further south and southwest. It's as that feature, that area of low pressure comes down during the course of tomorrow night in the Monday morning. You notice here that this is the door opening to Arctic air. So we've got cold air in place during the course of tomorrow. We've got even colder air getting transported, pulled down in the wake of this area of low pressure that originated, by the way, up towards Iceland here. So we've got very cold air, -10 or lower at 850 across the north of the UK. But the majority of Scotland actually sees that -10 isotherm running down from the north here. So that is notable cold air. And of course, even with sunshine, if you've got a cold enough column, the incoming solar radiation fights against that cold, tries to eat away at the cold. But if the column has got a cold enough depth, you can fight against the incoming solar radiation, and actually the temperatures really struggle to respond much above the freezing mark. So that's going to be interesting to see. Daytime temperatures, how cold does it get or remain during the day, and then of course at night time, how cold do we get as well? With snow on the ground, with relatively clear skies and light winds, I reckon -10, very plausible indeed with this type of setup. And you notice here that the GFS has that cold maintaining itself through the middle portion of the week. Second half of the weekend, we're keeping our eyes on areas of low pressure, and this is the latest run of the GFS. So notice its further north track allows milder air to encompass more of the UK. You notice that there, and then we've got this fight between north and between south. Looking at the ECMWF for the 850 temperatures, I would reckon that there's colder air winning the battle compared to the GFS. So we'll play it through the loop here. You can see here that area of low pressure delivers that punch of very cold air across the British Isles. Of course, we've got the battle with incoming solar radiation increasing in strength at this time of the year. We're increasing the length of daylight, of course, as well. But when you get a cold enough air mass, it can fight against that. You notice here that we progress right the way through the course of this week. And notice here that the ECMWF has the majority of the UK remaining in that cold air. We don't have as much of an intrusion of milder. And look at this here. By the time we reach the end, towards next weekend, we've got some of these purples representing -10, -12 Celsius at 850 across the northern half of the British Isles here. Like I keep banging on the drum, very interesting times. And certainly, if you're not a subscriber, you're interested in meteorology, you're interested in seeing other than just what to expect over the next couple of days, I talk about the reason why this cold has, arrived, all the global aspects that come into play with regards to the forecast itself. There's a lot of content here, folks, that you do not see elsewhere. So, please hit that subscribe button. I do appreciate your support, and I try to explain as best I can exactly what's going on here. So let's have a look at the snow prospects here for the British Isles over the next several days here. So, of course, in comes these features from the north. We'll start to see the snow increasing, not just across the north. Notice here, it's the majority of it's just across the north of the UK. And over higher ground here, so we don't see a significant amount of snow right the way through the majority of the week away from the Highlands, for example. Then you notice here that by the time we reach the end of the week and into the weekend here, that system that comes in from the west, we do see a significant snow event. But let's have a quick look at the ECMWF before I run out of time. Always run out of time at the moment because there's that many things to talk about. We'll play through the loop. You can see here that the snow increases, and stay tuned. We'll continue to watch this day by day. I'll have a global weather and climate report tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.